Now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Holly Baumgartner, who wrote a book of Florida girls. So you grew up in Florida?
I did.
When did you come here? You were born here?
So my mother was pregnant here. My parents were living here, and they went up to go skiing, or my mom wasn't going to ski, but my dad was going to ski, and I came early. So my name was going to be Dawn, but it became Holly because I came a bit early.
So Holly, come on up. She wrote a book, A Florida Girl. And she'll tell you about her history at Nova University, and now she's moved someplace else.
Thank you. So, well, first, Alex from Miramar Bakery. Who's Alex? I want to just.
He's not here.
Oh, he's not here. Okay, well, it's the first time I've ever had a cake when I've been, giving a talk. So this is very cool.
Can you speak louder, please?
Can I speak louder? Okay, better? Can you hear me okay?
No.
Okay, good. But I also want to especially thank Adam and Steve for rescuing me. We had some technology issues with my Mac, so we're on this. I think if any of the pictures get flipped around, it's the technology glitches. So thank you, Adam and Steve, very much.
We're going to turn the lights up so we can see the film better.
Okay, perfect. So I do want to clarify a few things. I do have books, but this particular book I did not write in total. This particular book is a book from many writers on growing up in South Florida. So I have taken that and expanded it into a longer piece. And I think this is a little bit different than many of the historical lectures that you have. This has been a very rewarding project to spend time on. This is a Florida Humanities project, and so I've been asked to start with this disclaimer that my words are my own and don't reflect on anyone else. So there you go. And I have some important thank yous, some sincere ones. Of course, the biggest one being to the Florida Humanities, which was funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities. And as you know, those entities are under fire and funding has been greatly reduced and cut. So if you care about programs like these, I really urge you to speak up to your congresspeople about how important it is to keep this funding alive. So we'll see. And of course, then thank you to the Hollywood Historical Society. I'm super excited to be here, so thank you. To Karen Albertson for all the work that she did corralling me into this and getting it all set up and everything else, so thank you, Karen. And to Florida Roots Press. And they are the ones who published our book. And the book is Coming of Age in Florida. And one of my selections in it was called Terrace Firma in Fort Lauderdale, which, as I said, was the beginning of this project. And so this presentation involves personal memoir published in this collection and poetry. So why personal memoir for an historical lecture? By definition, memoir is an historical account or biography written from personal knowledge and specialized sources. It's comprised of different parts, including archival archaeology, which compares documents across time looking for differences. It can also be used to look at one address or one neighborhood and look at the changes to it over time. So that's what I'm going to be doing in part by looking at my home and the changes over time. It also uses memoir and diaries as historical documents because storytelling is a rich textual source for future generations. Pardon me?
You need to be louder.
I need to be louder? Even louder?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to blow your eardrums here. So one of the ways that it does that is through historical flavor. We move from the broader sweep of history at a sociocultural level to an individual personal level, focusing on personal relationships, which I'll talk about, the environment or locale, and street level community. So this may be a little bit different from most of your historical lectures, I don't know. So this uses some of my own photos, vintage postcards, some local historical sources. At the same time, I may flip between past and present in pictures to give that sense of history, of change over the course of one lifetime or so, because it's still going on. Thank you. So this memory begins in 2021, so very recently. And here we go. When the automatic doors whoosh open, I slide into the heat, a self-styled Midwesterner suddenly questioning why I was making this radical life change. I mean, what the heck? The state is known worldwide for the daily Florida Man news stories. There's even a party board game that, and I quote, comes packed with hundreds of Florida Man headlines with missing words that players have to guess. What am I doing back here? Then the elusively familiar washes over me. South Florida. A ghostly oyster brine, blistered asphalt, a nauseating amount of coconut suntan lotion, and the ubiquitous mildew of a rain-heavy environment. I breathe in its ugly noise, and the weight of it almost crushes me. I was coming home. Returning to where I came of age, perhaps seeking the comfort of what seemed a more innocent and carefree world, but I barely recognize my city. The Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport so jammed with tourists and their cruise line shuttles it takes 15 minutes to get to I-95. With its traffic lurching along at a heady 25 miles per hour. Iguanas perch everywhere like monstrous versions of anoles, while Publix and Winn-Dixie are overshadowed by Whole Foods. Continuous strip malls, pricey bistros, and luxury patio furniture palaces squat where longleaf and loblolly pines once punctuated scrub lots. All a dissonant, eye-numbing blur streaming past. Yet the street names shout out to me: Commercial Boulevard, Federal Highway, Oakland Park, Sunset. Geographical contours to the rigid numbering system only locals understand. After the Lyft driver dumps me off, I walk up our driveway, once a crunchy 2 inches of cantaloupe-colored pebbles, like most houses in this once sleepy town, and perfect for swallowing incessant summer rains. My roller bag bumps across a modern herringbone brick now. I pause where the aloe plant grew taller than my childhood self, feeling it slice again on my arm and the shadows of its scar from the spiny leaves we used for sunburns. I pass the depression still there in the St. Augustine grass where the 20-foot grapefruit tree stood before Hurricane Andrew brought it crashing to its knees. Peering through the front window, I see straight out to the dock, where it is, at that moment, raining. Is this meant to be some paradoxical life metaphor? Clear skies up front with storm clouds on the back end? But of all the cliches, a rainbow suddenly lifts its head, seemingly touching down in Wilton manners, making me laugh at the symbolism and calming my jitters enough to crack open the door, now growing soft with dry rot and termite tracks. In the 1950s, long before my parents met, my dad bought this, the second house on a little peninsula of land jutting out into the North Fork of the Middle River, a terrace in SoFlo speak. And by the way, he really argued hard with the realtor who had the house next door, the only other house in the neighborhood at that time that had been built. But he argued that down. He got $5,000 knocked off the price. He was so proud of himself, he paid $19,500 for it, right? So, kind of crazy. So the first house belonged to that realtor next door, and the rest were not built. From this terrace, it was a mile of sandy lots and promise down to the ocean. The Mai Kai restaurant was a lonely outpost on Federal Highway. It looks a bit different now. By the 1960s, our neighbors were bringing back trunkloads of corals, buckets of shells, and starfish as big as bicycle tires from diving in Key West. But finally, in the 1970s, the coastal and coral reef alarms were sounding, at least in scientific circles, with the expanding city occupying a unique position tucked between America's largest coral hardscape off the coast and the mangrove-pocked Everglades, with its prominent port named after them. These fragile and globally unique ecosystem infrastructure protect our coastlines, absorb the shock of hurricanes, and nurture our disappearing, charismatic marine life, like our 5 turtle species whose nests were rapidly disappearing. And we should be so proud of ourselves because all that work regulating light pollution has caused quite a comeback. I'll talk more about that. But the city's growth spurt was made messier by the breakers dominating A1A each winter, smoking pot on the beach at night, and trashing the gelato-colored 2-story motels with their pocket swimming pools and walking distances to the bar scene. Made famous by the classic movie Where the Boys Are, which predated movies like Spring Breakers, Animal House, American Virgin, and any number of teenage bad behavior films, and simultaneously created its own beach genre. In a so-flow winter, college kids outnumbered the NSMs, or no-see-ums, but left a bigger bite. The city slumbered the entire summer to recover. My own family mostly avoided Ocean Drive and its monochromatic northern invaders. Our terrace was instead a lesson in genetics, from the ceaselessly replicating flora and fauna to the diverse tangle of people inhabiting it. The green anoles that everyone called chameleons, and likewise pronounced with 3 syllables, raced across our porches and bedroom ceilings. I missed their sleek little bodies, cannon fodder for the introduced and non-invasive curly-tailed lizards. A loss, not a gain. But we were all invaders, really, transplants effortlessly melting into the landscape. When I was 6, and that's my dad, I went door to door asking each neighbor if they had any children to play with, but came home empty-handed. My parents were really embarrassed by this, by the way. By the time I was 8, the terrace pavement was covered with hopscotch and Foursquare chalkings. The terrace children tumbled through each other's houses and scattered across backyards. My baby sister Heather was part of the younger set, the ones less likely to get into trouble, while the older gang included Luca's Portuguese family, Robin and Karen, who used kayaks to get across the canal to each other's houses, Kevin, even wider than my own mixed European family, and he lived across the canal. He had cages of parrots and cockatiels that nearly ended in murder of the birds, that is, by irate neighbors from the noise. Sometimes we shot bottle rockets back and forth across the canal to see who could land them the farthest, which really set those birds to cackling. Natalie's Roman Catholic family also, interestingly, practiced Santeria, which provided us with a steady supply of candles to swipe for ghost stories under my dock. The Mullers lived in the modernist pile at the end of the terrace that we nicknamed the German Castle, as it was the only 2-story house on the terrace at that time. And their son Michael became my best friend, and this memoir was inspired by him. Lucy and Carl lived next door, a Cuban couple who grew herbs along the fence dividing our properties. My sister and I swam every weekend in their pool, pretending to be sea otters or Japanese pearl divers. Carl threw pennies into the deep end for us to retrieve, while Lucy served up homemade chicken soup loaded with dill and carrot greens when our shriveled skin signaled too much time in the water. There were no iguanas then to devour the tender shoots and roots. The rest of the week, we knew just where to find the toeholds to clamber over the few privacy walls between houses, what palms drooped low enough to hide us in back gardens, and where to squeeze inside the banyan tree, our own secret clubhouse, South Florida style. Best of all, we had a not-so-secret meeting spot under my parents' dock at low tide. We painted a red line where the king tide stopped, so we knew where to put our treasures in the seawall. And I want you to look very closely. Oops. This is high tide, but look where the water is. A few months ago, I climbed down, and that faded red marking in little tiny patches is still there. But king tides are more than 2 feet higher today. That's a loss, not a gain. We were free rangers, though no one used a fancy term like that then. Evenings were intended for living under the stars. Peter Pans found playmates until our names floated across the water, nudging us home. On weekends, my dad might drive us down to the port to see the ships and go for ice cream, security being a little less rigorous then. Or a few mothers might band together to take us to Palm Beach, the Hollywood Boulevard, the Hollywood Boardwalk, or other cities for Lion Country Safari, Monkey Jungle, Cypress Gardens, Parrot Jungle. Do any of these names sound familiar to you? If you grew up here or lived here for a while, you'll remember them. But my favorite, of course, was the Miami Seaquarium, where I got my beloved Flippy. And once even Silver Springs, where my grandparents honeymooned. More often, we stayed local at Hugh Taylor Birch State Park for a picnic and a train ride, or the swimming at the Hall of Fame by the Jungle Queen, where shark and billfish carcasses hung by the hundreds on the docks. Such losses then, but today, protections have led to gains. Florida is far ahead of any other state in its catch and release efforts, even including Hawaii, where I was 2 years ago. So even though our mothers preferred the International Hall of Fame pool to the beach, they could be persuaded to take us to Hollywood Beach or Lauderdale by the Sea for a beach day. The breakers rarely came to the state park or Lauderdale by the Sea, not knowing about the first, and given that the ice cream parlor and the Rexall drugstore were about the only excitement at the second. Some of my earliest memories include my father sitting with me in the shallows and using the tides and combers to teach me addition and subtraction, losses and gains. Then again, this was my dad's favorite way to babysit on the beach. So, as we grew up, we terrace kids sifted buckets of sand for the rare unbroken shell on the Sargasso-soaked beach, searched for treasure in the jetsam under Anglin's Pier, chased the sandpipers along the tidal line, or snorkeled on our reef with its surprisingly diverse array of aquatic life, including glowing corals, sporadic moon jellies, crayon-box-striped fish, and even an occasional hammerhead or nurse shark. Once, racing the waves along the shoreline, Michael double-dog dared me, bet you can't pop that blue balloon. And I thought it looked rather disgusting, jumbled up with rotted fishing net. You're just a Barbie doll, he sneered. And thank you, Greta Gerwig, for reclaiming my fond Barbie space. But he said, you're just a Barbie doll, stomp on it. And then the chant that we all dread, chicken, chicken, chicken. And like every kid everywhere, I succumbed to bravery and stupidity to stomp on that old blue balloon.
Little balloon.
which turned out not to be a balloon at all, and my screaming could be heard in Jupiter, the planet, not the city. The sting of a Portuguese man-of-war colony is worthy of the name. But it turns out the old wives were quite smart, as hot water and vinegar is a cure to take the sting out of the sting. Packing up the car to go to the beach always included a red plastic gallon of gasoline. Besides pinch-hitting jellyfish stings occasionally, at the end of a beach day, we would stand on the scalding hot pavement and scrub the sticky black tar off our feet with gasoline-drenched rags before being allowed in the car. Some of you may remember that. You didn't go to the beach without it. Southlow beaches no longer feature clumps of tar under every step, as my auntie experienced here. The Broward County Sea Turtle Conservation Program has coral nurseries off the coast on that same tar-laden beach to restore our blighted reef. And with the city light ordinances in place for the past few decades, 5 of the 7 global sea turtle species are once again calling South Florida their nesting home. Another gain in my ocean mathematics. My father's ocean arithmetic has followed me into adulthood. And how do I know this so well? As I was dean for several years, many years, at the Guy Hervey Oceanographic Research Center at NSU, which is down there at the entrance to the port. So if you get a chance, visit, and certainly come down to the Carpenter House and see the sea turtles in the autumn. In elementary school, along the open arcades between classrooms, we jostled each other with textbooks so old the sweet stink of mold clung to our clothes until we could run it off under the ever sunshine of the kickball field. Music period was like nap time in the cramped trailer squatting by the auditorium, where we sang the Swanee River song like a funeral dirge from sleepiness. Our homes and the school weren't air-conditioned. Like the shotgun houses of Nolans, old Florida homes were designed to naturally keep you cool with terrazzo floors, louvered windows, and ceilings designed for airflow under the slanted roofs, all the best environmental architecture that we have replaced in the name of modernization. And I'm sure several of you have seen neighborhoods where you have the old Florida home and the new Florida home, and what a difference that is. So it was only the tiny school trailers, windows buttoned up to prevent sound leak, that we basted to well-doneness. But one winter, class was dismissed early because it was... Anybody know?
Snowing. Can't hear you.
Yes, a snow day. Right here, January 19th, 1977, beating out Jimmy Carter's inauguration for the newspaper headlines, "It was snowing." My friends huddled in my driveway, watching velvety flakes melting to sprinkles and evaporating before they ever reached the ground. Touching them with our fingers in wonder, we tried to catch them on our tongues, expecting sugar and getting salt. But each academic year culminated in a field trip to the Seminole community with its storytelling, bric-a-brac trims, and alligator wrestling. One year, a particularly engaged teacher bought us each a palm-sized carved wooden turtle that even now nestles in my jewelry box. In the community, the sense of difference halted my constant movement. My first consciousness surfaced of the face of the other, and in these faces, sorrow seeped up through the show. I did not understand the painful hollowness expanding inside me, but felt the loss of an unknown something. By middle school, Michael and I had become artists and scientists to know the unknown, to name the somethings we encountered. Indeed, much later, I would receive one of my degrees from studying Native American populations across the United States. But for two curious kids, play on words intended, we tried to map our world with Conte crayons and poster board, which we singed to look like antique maps. You'll note the dock steps and the water level. sliding down the seawall to circle the neighborhood. We were unseen from above at low tide, or at least we thought we were. We excavated the silty river rim to examine the layers, stashing bones and bracelets, beer tabs, and other artifacts in wooden cigar boxes bagged from the upscale store on La Solés Boulevard. We swiped eggs from the fridge to prove that fragile shells were unbreakable when pressed between our palms end to end, which is true, they are. But inevitably, the egg experiment degenerated into a ball game that left sulfurous stains on the seawall for months. Michael and I were insatiable in our quest to discover things. Lying under the sea grape bushes with a massive magnifying glass, we channeled the sunlight to a pinpoint on one of the elephant ear-sized leaves, timing the smoking point, and then recording how much additional time it took to catch on fire. And well, there might have been a fire, one overjoyed at the abundance of dry tinder available during a Florida winter. Our parents rarely punished our earnest forays into experimentation, perhaps a benign parental eye-rolling from a distance, or from a recognition that the Muscovy ducklings being hatched in the carport, which was later enclosed, or the evil-smelling skink dissection on the front porch, the grafting attempts which ruinously beheaded the hibiscus, the oleander flowers being distilled for poison. And I suddenly realized that we sound like we were budding serial killers, but it was all in the name of exploration, about finding our place in the world around us through leveraging the Florida climate and its unique geography. And Michael went on to become a top scientist. That same curiosity led to my first kiss on New Year's Eve from my scientist partner, following by a dissection of it, me whispering, "What was that?" and Michael playfully calling it simply a slip of the tongue. Both of our lips were greased with Bonnie Bell champagne lip smackers, substituted for the inaccessible real deal. And no, I don't have pictures. Whenever Michael's parents were on a date night, we would crash their bedroom with its full-size round bed framed by half-circle of mirrors. It was the 70s, right? And no, I don't have pictures of that either. We cranked up their stereo with Queen or disco or Y100 before it turned country, singing along, slowly increasing the bed's rotation speed, sprawled across the slippery satin, fingertips barely touching, and musing on why anyone would put mirrors on the ceiling, too. A loss and a finding. As clever as we were, we didn't figure that answer out till much, much later. But there was a later. There is always a later. In high school, a ripping apart of my tightly woven life. My parents dragged me to Ohio for what they called a better education, a bigger house, a different life experience. We kept our house here, but we went north, so I think that makes us sunbirds rather than snowbirds, right? In Ohio, my feet ached, caged in winter boots. The frozen landscape locked me inside, where I devoured books by the fireplace, my curiosity still there, but turned inward. Our Midwestern neighbors lived too far apart to blur our personal boundaries, and I was cold, always so cold, the crisp, dry air pinching my skin, the sun a counterfeit light, evaporating before it ever reached the ground. In Florida, each day was an original story we wrote, we of the always restless, moving as if our feet were sentences unspooling behind us, fingertips, words, learning to speak. Up north, I wrote stories, but I did not live them. Eventually, I learned to love hiking in the deep woods by myself, to recognize nuances in 20 Shades of Winter and 50 Shades of Green, and to not cry when autumn mandated window closures and coats. When the job offer landed for a dean position in my Florida, I accepted, and not just because it included an oceanographic research center. I was coming home, and I was going to see Michael. It took less than a week to hate the traffic, lament the breakers, and the grocery store lines, relearn to not park under coconut palms, Never wear good shoes during the summer. Remember that you can wear stilettos and rhinestones to breakfast board meetings, and to always, always, always carry an umbrella. But it took an additional 3 months to embrace my nostalgia, and I did it through writing these words. But with what irony of the universe to turn nostalgia into loss again, my homage to my beloved state, my ode to childhood and its inevitable best friend, would be another coming of age. I would lose my way again to a place I could not travel. He would not even get to read my gift, dying suddenly and unexpectedly just days later. Afterward, I dug into boxes of old photos, as we often do, and discovered an even older packet of photos below. And I realized I've always been a Florida girl. I'd say Florida woman, but that belongs in a board game or a headline. The losses and gains, a plot of land cleared and built, rebuilt, modernized, crumbling a bit, and aging. A coastal environment doing the same, relationships growing and fraying, losses and gains. It was an epiphany that we come of age at every point in time. Coming of age implies constant movement without ever quite arriving. The people who are our anchors and our self-stories are the title tug of our own nostalgia, the present casting a shadow and the shape of the past, rippling and morphing like sun on water, and we are ever caught in its current. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions. Yes.
Where did you move to in Ohio? Because that's where I grew up.
Oh, did you? So right now, well, at that time, Toledo, Ohio.
The other end of the state.
You were the other end of state? So it's yes. And I was really glad I missed the blizzard of 78. So, any other questions?
From Chicago here.
Oh, I think you have it even colder than Ohio in Chicago. So it's good to be down here, isn't it?
Yes.
So my husband said to me, "You're wearing a sweater in August. How are you ever going to survive a winter?" Probably not. So you had a question? Pardon me?
You lived in Wilton Manor.
Well, it comes up on GPS as Wilton Manors, but I'm actually in Oakland Park is my address. It's on the Middle River out in one of those terraces. Yes, we still have the house, and I was just there this morning, and I'm heading north for a little bit today, but yes, it's still there, and it's the same house. I mean, it's had a new roof, it's had an updated bathroom, but it's the same house. Yes.
What will you be doing in Michigan? I know are you relocating there or?
I think we're like tentatively putting our toe there, but staying anchored here. I said, we can do this for 3 years, right? We can do it. But I took a position as the Vice President of Graduate Studies and Research at Eastern Michigan University. So I'm doing that, but, coming down here I've only been up there 2 months, and like I said, I'm already wearing a sweater up there. So they're all laughing at me at the university like, oh, you're going to be a mess. But yes.
How long were you with NSU?
I was at NSU for 4.5 years.
Are you coming back?
I certainly hope so.
We watch.
Thank you. Adam?
I think I missed it. I don't know if you said in your story what happened to your childhood friend. Was his name Mike? What was
So he actually died of a very virulent and undiagnosed liver cancer. And from the time that it was discovered, he passed away 2 weeks later. So
How old was he?
at that time, he was 49 years old. So. Yes.
Hey, I want to just thank you for giving us a really different way to approach history, and it really was a wonderful talk. The emotionality of it and making the connection with the felt experience, I think was really unique, and that's something that we're really working on with the Historical Society, is to help elevate that and bring that out for people about people's different emotional experiences of these kinds of things. So it was just really great to hear it.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful writer.
I hope that the message for everybody is that we are all historians, right? We live these experiences, and sharing our stories, those are important pieces of history. So if you have an opportunity to write it down, share a photo, talk to young people about it, or older people, depending on your where you are in life. But we're all historians, right? Or can be. So that's important. Any other questions? Yes.
I don't know, there was a picture of Lauderdale by the sea, and the restaurant had to be signed the wharf, and I think that's the Aruba now.
It is Aruba.
You know what year that picture was from, when
It
it was on
was
the wharf? 'Cause
pretty-
I only knew it as Aruba.
Yeah, it was pretty early. It became Aruba, I think. I don't remember the exact year, but
You don't know when that picture was from, when it said the wharf.
no, that would have been in I think it became Aruba's maybe in the 70s, late 70s.
The funny
So-
thing is, now there's another area in Fort Lauderdale, Las Olas, I think it is, that they call the wharf.
Mm. You know, the interesting thing about that part of Lauderdale by the Sea is, I mean, I don't, if many of you can remember, you could just drive right up and you parked right on the beach, and like it was really quiet. Like nobody went there, you know. So it was a great place if you were local to be at the beach without a ton of tourists.
Now
But
you can't find parking in the city or anything.
no, and it's crazy, and that's all like a little walking area, and it's so different. But it's a good thing. It's good for, right? It's just different. Other questions? Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this. Thank you.